Similarly, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I also would like to pay my respects to the elders past and present, and I do recognise that sovereignty has never been ceded. So the bad news. You thought that we just had to read that pile of documentation there, and now the federal EPA has come out as well at the same time. And so the state documentation is this big pile, and the federal documentation is this big pile. So thankfully there is quite a lot of crossover between the two. We'll cover that a little bit. So this is the difference between state and federal. So state is broader, if you like, flora, vegetation, terrestrial flora, inland waters. We can talk a lot more about air quality, social surrounding, visuals, light, noise impacts, social amenities, social connectivity, Indigenous heritage, and even probably road safety when we talk about this at the state level. The federal level, it's really about the matters of national significance. So I'd like to invite Phil for his 5-minute presentation on the matters of national significance. Okay, now to the nitty-gritty. When you make a submission, we will include this stuff on the submission papers that we have for you, but please make sure that you take note. Am I making a submission to the state, which is the EPA, or am I making a submission to federal? And please make sure that you do too, and please make sure they go where they're meant to go. Every submission counts. Please put a submission in. Doesn't matter if you just say, I think this road is terrible because it's going to cut down trees and there's too many trees being cut down. Put it in. The more submissions we get, the better. You don't have to be scientific. We have tried to take the science out of this massive big documentation and put it into English for you in the handout that we can give you. But please just put a submission in. So the very first thing that everybody's been banging on about this afternoon is that the EPA specifically asked Main Roads to produce environmental information about alternatives. They haven't done it. The alignment report, which is the basis for their discussion around using the red route, the aim of it was to find the least environmental impact. You can read, these are their tables, their documents. Most of the data in the Southern Alignment Selection Report is actually unpublished Main Roads data that they haven't released at any point to anybody. And that's in their referencing section in this massive big document here. So how are we meant to believe what they're telling us? And yet on their own figures, the red route is the worst. Shall I just leave that one there? You can just put that up as your submission, okay?
The red is the Jalora.
The red is the Jalora through the Jalora corridor.
So just repeating that, their own data shows that the green, we're not saying that the green route is the best selection. What we're saying is their own data shows that the red route has a higher environmental impact than the route that they have chosen. But the conclusion that they came to was that the impacts were the same or similar.
Sorry, I think you may have said the wrong thing, but I could be wrong. You said the red route
has the most impact.
It has the highest environmental impact.
Yeah.
More than the green route.
Correct.
Which they rejected.
They rejected the green route.
That's right.
So Eddie briefly mentioned this, and this comes back to one of the questions we had about the total bore impact. So I went to the Department of Water and Environment and found their annual clearing statistics that are available and put them together for the last 10 years. So we can see how much land has been cleared in the Southwest Land Division in the last 10 years alone. We then look at the Swan Coastal Plain, and then we look at Capel local government area, 124. And the whole bore project is going to clear 102. That is 10 years of clearing in one fell swoop. Nobody actually tells you this stuff because nobody puts the cumulative figures together. Everybody sits there and goes, oh, but it's only 4.5 hectares, it'll be fine. It's only 24 hectares, it'll be fine. Don't worry, leave it to us, we'll sort it out. And that's how we end up with this figure. This is 2007. We've already cleared 80% of the vegetation on the Swan Coastal Plain. We've already altered the wetlands by 80% on the Swan Coastal Plain. This is 2007 data. And I loved the fact that it was written by Mark McGowan. What is the main cause of loss of biodiversity according to Mark McGowan in this document, 2007? Building roads. And here we are, 2020, staring down the barrel of the same bullshit in front of us every single time. They haven't talked about climate change at all in this whole document. It is an abomination. We are all talking about climate change, and yet they sort of say, well, you know, it's not really up to us to decide where our people are going to get the things from. That's not acceptable these days. They need to have a procurement policy which forces the people to actually get materials that are sustainable, that are recyclable, that are actually sustainable in this community. Main Roads has just washed their hands of it. One of the things they do actually mention is, oh yeah, we should probably talk about greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah, the EPA wants us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to stop climate change. But we're going to build a road, and during the construction of the road and during the use of the road, yeah, we will actually increase greenhouse gas emissions. They hardly talk at all about changes in rainfall, changes in water flows, aquifer levels. We actually looked at their submission for the Southern Bore, and they have asked to put bores into the Yarragadee to take enough water to supply Boyanup for a year. That's the Yarragadee, that's our drinking water. And they want to use it for dust suppression as they build a road. Me, I think refilling an aquifer and the potential to actually damage that aquifer by taking excessive amounts of water from it is a significant issue. And the aquifer in this region is actually quite different, and we put in a significant submission to DWER against these bores. So the current road obviously impacts the basalt and blue metal reserves of Jallora, and this has been recognised during the planning stages. So the principle of intergenerational equity states that the present generation should ensure that the health, diversity and productivity of the environment is maintained or enhanced for the benefit of future generations. But putting a dirty great big road over that quarry and that reserve of basalt is not actually enhancing the benefit of our future generations who will need that basalt for coastal mitigation. Social impacts. I thought this was fascinating because repeatedly in the CRG meetings they talked about the KPMG report. We'll give you a copy of the KPMG report. We're doing a KPMG report. And when the KPMG report came out, it was actually published. It was done before the route was actually selected. It was looking at the... So how on earth can you look at the impact if you don't actually know which route's going to happen? They looked at the economic information, and in fact, across the entire bore, they interviewed 8 people. I won't go into the visual impact assessment because Eddie briefly talked about building roads that are in keeping with their surroundings. And the Yolinda Road Bridge and the interchange at Wood Road and the interchange at Lilydale Centenary are planned to be 6 metres above the ground. That is not in keeping with the current environment. Some of the changes that have been put forward, you can see the big map that we've produced there on the GBRS. They were never put into the GBRS that they were going to do Jules Road and Centenary Road. So the people who live in those areas have suddenly found themselves with a dirty great big interchange and road right going past their house. The Jules Road extension goes through public open space and a playground. But that's never actually been put into the GBRS. So they're constant harping on the fact that this road was going through the GBRS reserve, that's gazetted, that's why we're using it, falls down with the whole Centenary Road aspect. I live in Stratham. Road closures that affect Stratham were never discussed, and we weren't even included as part of the CRG groups. Offsets. Well, I'm just simply going to put out there, Eddie, there is an entire appendix on offsets. The thing which I think is most important to recognise is two factors. There was a recent inquiry into the federal environment protection legislation, and the interim report says that people simply cannot trust offsets. There's no compliance measures, there's absolutely no ability to track the offsets, and there's no one actually going back and checking that these governments are doing what they've been said they're going to do. One of the absolute hilarious things that's happened here is that one of their offsets, they say, oh, this is such a valuable piece of land, we're going to put it as regional open space in the Greater Bunbury Region Scheme. Well, again, I'm going to point you to that map where they have just changed the Greater Bunbury Region Scheme to allow them to build a road on regional open space called the Calgalup Park. So what's the guarantee that in 10 years' time, when they want to build a road through their offset, regional open space, it'll be right. And offsets by planting seedlings cannot offset the loss of mature trees. Your little fish, really important fish.
The environment's little fish.
This little fish, you know why they didn't find it the first two times they went looking? Because it was dry.
It's going to be dry for a lot longer.
Yeah, and so this is in their documentation that they looked at 5 Mile Brook and, we couldn't find the fish. Oh, when we looked when it was running, yeah, we did find one then. It doesn't matter, we're going to clear 4.5 hectares, anyway, of its habitat. This fish is listed on the international red list. So again, if you choose one little fish to talk about in your submission, talk about this little boy, because he lives in the corridor. So there are 2 Southwest Ecological Regional Linkages that intersect with this proposal, and the destruction of land and habitat at the Woods Road interchange directly impacts one of those regional ecological linkages. Now, these linkages are recognised as hotspots of biodiversity, of areas where fauna can actually have areas of refuge. They are corridors where fauna can actually move between ranges to find habitat, breeding, to get genetic diversity. They just want to bulldoze a whole section of it. It's unacceptable, and we need to be pointing these things out. 5 Mile Brook's actually a conservation category wetland. They don't tell you that. But it actually, at the point where this road is going to go across 5 Mile Brook, to the north of it, and the brook flows north, is a conservation category wetland. And Maureen can tell you a million reasons why that road should not go in that spot, because of the potential impact on that wetland. I'm just going to say it again, please make a submission. Please give us your email if you're willing to. We will then send you an information pack. I have some simple templates here for you today if you'd like to take one away. Eddie brought down his templates as well. Please make a submission. If you're not sure, we've given you some telephone numbers and the website also to contact. Please ask questions, please get help. We want to be able to help people so that as many people as possible put in their submission to say that this is an environmentally unacceptable road. Thanks for your time this afternoon.